Back on ABC24 this week to talk about the upcoming special session of the state legislature in Nashville. It gets underway tomorrow. Predictions are it could last anywhere from 3 days to maybe a full week. The agenda is public safety, and only the governor can call a special session. And Governor Bill Lee has said he wants this special session on public safety to address not only gun issues, but other issues too. And it's really the gun issues that have been so controversial. In fact, many in his own party not wanting it to happen as a result. House Speaker Cameron Sexton, Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, both offering their predictions this week of how much they think will get accomplished. They're optimistic about issues dealing with mental health. They're optimistic that some legislation regarding juvenile crime, maybe tougher sentences there, will get passed. But want to go down the line here and see what you're expecting, if anything, from the special session, or it will be a giant waste of time and taxpayer money.
I want to quote the governor. He said, "I'm under pressure to provide an environment for Tennesseans that's safe." I think that's a heavy statement for a governor to make, and I hope that Sexton and the others, they keep mouthing the support for mental health. I hope that we can get something done in the mental health area, and I hope that includes getting assessments for at least for the students in Shelby County schools. How about that? Let's start with mental health assessments and see if we can sort of predict aberrant behavior.
But will we have a red flag law, that's big debate there, that would take away the gun of somebody whose mental health is questioned by the courts?
I don't think so. You know, the real insiders are Speaker Sexton and Lieutenant Governor. I think those predictions are on target. I think you'll get some movement on some of these other issues, but the big hot button issue of the red flag law, from what I'm hearing, it's a dead letter.
Which raises the question, will any legislation regarding guns get passed, Otis?
And the answer is no, Richard. Even though late last week, the Democrats would have nothing to lose and nothing to gain, they said they were going to put forth a whole package of gun-related bills, including, repealing the permitless carry, and you just go down the list. Well, they don't have anything to lose by doing that. None of it is going to be heard. I agree with Chris 100%. Guns won't even be mentioned by most of the Republicans up there, and if the Democrats try to do it, they'll probably turn off their mics again. But I think the mental health part is important, and they'll get a little something done there.
Think about this with regard to guns. January 6th, the insurrection, there were Confederate flags all over the place that had AR-15 weapons on the flag itself with a caption that says, "Come and take mine." So that's the mentality of the Republican Party, most of them in Nashville, and that's why nothing is going to be done on guns.
Yeah. So you did have Representative Gillespie introduce two pieces of legislation that he thought might get some traction, but he was told by his own party, you can forget it. He wanted enhanced sentences for certain gun crimes. They were said that's not happening. And people to be who have been indicted for a dangerous felony to be prevented from purchasing certain firearms, and they also told no on that.
Well, I saw a little bit of frustration in the comments from Gillespie and also I think from Brent Taylor. They are not as strident as their colleagues in the Republican Party in Nashville, and they are a little frustrated that their colleagues won't even entertain anything about this.
It's like almost Republicans throughout the rest of the state have very little sympathy with the pleading that's coming from Republicans in Shelby County urban areas. They're like, they're hearing from the police chiefs and the sheriffs who are saying we need some help.
Sure, I think maybe two responses. One, I think that in the more rural parts of the state, you have folks who take a much stricter interpretation of the Second Amendment about any sort of, they're skeptical of any sort of restrictions on the, fairly enough, the clearly enumerated right of a citizen to own a firearm. So that's the first part. I think the second part is there is a lot of skepticism. I think also a lot of it founded that some of these items on the wish list are not really going to solve the problem. They're not really going to solve the problem. For example, the red flag laws. Is there a crime, a recent high-profile crime in the city that anyone can make a credible argument that was going to be stopped with the red flag law? I'm not saying they're a bad idea. I'm just saying I think that's two parts of it. A constitutional interpretation, just a general political, philosophical perspective on the gun rights issue. And then secondary, just a concern about efficacy. Why are we doing this? Is it going to make an impact But yes, I do think that Representative Gillespie and Senator Taylor, they have different opinions from the rest of their colleagues in the state legislature on this issue.
Yep. All right, we'll see what happens. We'll be talking about this one next week for sure. We're going to come back and talk about Memphis's crime problem, grabbing headlines this week over 2 incidents and a response from the DA over the shooting of Tyree Nichols and how it's still affecting criminal cases here in Shelby. Right after this.